Hello and welcome to this week's video in which I'm going to make a shirred dress. Hi and welcome to this week's video. I'm Amelia and this is my channel So Amelia, where I talk all about making a handmade wardrobe for me and my children. This week I am going to take you along with me as I make a shirred dress. So this is a bit of a combination video this week. It is a week in my sewing life, but it's also a tutorial for how to make this shirred dress. Now, I was totally inspired by a dress by Hill House, their nap dress. I absolutely love the look of this dress with its tiers and the flutter sleeves and of course the shirring. So I really wanted to try and recreate this dress for myself. So before I got started making my own, I did watch a fantastic tutorial by Lauren Johnson and I'll link her video below, but I did want to try and recreate the tiers on the inspiration dress. So you can see in the picture that there is the main body of the dress and there are 3 tiers, and that's something that I really wanted in my dress. So I shall share the process with you today. Let me start with the fabric. So I was gifted this fabric by Minerva in exchange for a blog, and I will link that in the description box below if you want to go and read more details about how I made this dress. But here it is. I just love this print. I felt like it was quite William Morris in a way, and I don't normally go for black, but I really liked the black and white of this print. I thought it was quite an interesting contrast between the white and the black, and I also thought it would sheer up really nicely and make a beautiful shirred dress. So that is the fabric. It is a cotton poplin, so I also thought it would be really good to use for this shirred dress, as I think it will hold the shape of the tiers and the ruffle sleeves really, really nicely. Right, so I'll jump straight in. Today is Monday, I'm up in the sewing room, and I will share today the measurements because today's job is to get these pieces all ready to go. Best thing about this pattern is that you can just tear your fabric because this dress really is just made up out of rectangles. So that's a bonus. It should be pretty quick to cut out. So the first thing you need to do is to take your measurements because this dress is made to your specific measurements. So the first measurement I took was around my bust, which is a 36-inch measurement. So that is your full bust. Then to that measurement you want to add 2 inches, and that will give you the width of your first piece. Now I measured from here where I want the bodice piece to finish, just above, probably at my high bust, and then I measured down, and that was about 20 inches, which is where I wanted that first piece to finish before I started adding the tiers. I thought that was probably the most flattering place to start coming out for the tiers, and that worked out for me to be about 20 inches long. So my first 2 pieces were rectangles of 38 inches wide and 20 inches long. Now what I did do for each of these pieces, since they are all rectangles, is I labeled them all. I love a label, and I didn't want to be getting confused between all of these different tiered pieces of fabric. So on to tier number 1. Now what I really like about the Hill House dress is that each tier looks to me to be a little bit deeper in length as the skirt goes down. So for the first tier I decided to make the length of that 7 inches long. Now for the width, I took the width of my first piece of fabric, so that was 38 inches, and I multiplied that by 25% to make just a lightly gathered piece of fabric for that first tier. So for that first tier, that gave me a rectangle of 47.5 inches wide and 7 inches long, and I cut 2 of those, one for the front and one for the back. Now tier 2, again, I wanted to take the width of tier 1 and multiply that by 25%. So that was 47.5 inches plus 25%, which gives me a measurement of about 60 inches. Now for me, the width of my fabric was just under 60 inches, so all I did was rip 2 rectangles that were just slightly under 60 inches wide, and then for the length I decided to make that tier 8 inches long. So that's 2 rectangles, 60 inches wide and 8 inches long. Now for the third tier, it gets a little bit more complicated because I took the width of the second tier, so that was 60 inches, and again added 25% of that measurement. That gave me a width of 75 inches. Now no fabric that I know of is 75 inches wide. So what I did was I multiplied that by 2, because obviously you need to cut 2 lengths of 75 inches, which gave me 150 inches, and I divided that by 3, which gave me 50 inches. So I cut 3 rectangles of fabric 50 inches wide each, and then the length of that rectangle was 9 inches long. So for tier 3, my rectangular pieces were 50 inches wide and 9 inches long, and I cut 3 of those to go around that bottom tier. Now for the ruffle straps, you want to measure from your high bust, or where you want your bodice piece to finish, over your shoulder to where you want the back to finish. For me, that measurement was about 12 inches long. Then you want to multiply that by 2. For me, I wanted to multiply that by 2 because I want to shear my straps. So my 2 straps that I'm going to cut today are going to be 24 inches plus 1 inch for seam allowance, because I need to attach them obviously to the bodice at the front of the back. So 25 inches long, and I want to make them about 6 inches wide because I want, once I've sheared the fabric here, I want to have a nice ruffle just like the inspiration dress does. So that was a lot of maths. I did spend quite a lot of time earlier on today sitting down with my notebook and a piece of paper and my inspiration pictures and trying to work out just how I wanted to work all of this out. My first thing to do though was to take my measurements right from my high bust down to where I wanted the dress to finish. So I knew I had a rough measurement of about 44 inches was how long I wanted the dress in total. So that's how I decided how long to make each tier, so that I got to that total measurement of about 44 inches, give or take a bit. If you're wanting to make yours longer or shorter, you can alter those measurements according to your preferences. So I hope that's helpful. Any questions about that maths, do pop me a comment in the comment box below, and I'm very happy to try and help if I can. So today's job is to get these pieces torn out or cut out, depending on the width of each tier or each piece, and then we'll see how far we get after that. I suspect I probably won't be back on until Tuesday, where I'll fill you in on the next part of this process. It's Tuesday, and I thought I would pop up to the sewing room and just catch you up on where I'm at with my shirred dress. Sheared dress? However you choose to say it. You know what I'm talking about. So I have kept everything labelled because I'm working with rectangles for every single piece. I'm really worried I'm going to mess up which rectangle is which. So everything's still labelled, but the front and the back, I hemmed the top, I overlocked all of the edges, and then I sewed up the 2 side seams, and I'm going to shirr that as a whole panel once I've put the rest of the skirt onto it. And then what I'm working on next are these straps that will go over my shoulder, and these are also going to be shirred. Now what I've done on the edges of this is I've just overlocked all 4 edges, and then I've just folded over that overlocked edge once, and the next step is to sew that down with a top stitch. I don't want to fold that over twice. I just don't want the extra fabric because I want to make a really nice ruffle when it's gathered up. So I think overlocking it and folding it under once will be fine. So that's the next job this afternoon, is to sew top stitch that side seam on the strap pieces. And then I've got my 3 tiers that I am ready to work on. So what I'm going to do with these today is just to overlock all of the edges, and then I'm going to fold down the overlocking and top stitch that down on the top of each layer so that that can be gathered into the layer above and form a bit of a ruffle on the outside. Hope that makes sense. And so that's the job for today. It's kind of a lot of preparation in this dress rather than sewing. There's just a lot of overlocking, ironing, top stitching, and then if I can get back into the sewing room tonight, I might try and do some of those gathering stitches so that I can gather each tier into the one above. Obviously with each tier I will overlock the bottom edge that's going to be hidden under the tier above, and for this 3rd tier, or the bottom tier of the dress, I will hem that by folding it under twice. I hope you enjoyed seeing what we got up to this morning. It's such a glorious sunny morning here today that I couldn't resist but spend it in the park with my little girl. So we did lots of wandering through the woodland area of our park. We played on the swings and we just had a very lovely time together. I am wearing my Ogden cami today in this beautiful cotton sateen by Nerida Hansen, which I bought from Sister Mintaka quite a long time ago. I wasn't sure exactly what to do with it, and then I was inspired to make a skirt and Alton cami combination project so that I could wear each piece separately or together for a real sort of statement piece. The print on this is so much fun, but it is quite bold. I sort of felt it might be a bit much as a dress, so it's really nice to have two pieces that can be worn in 3 different ways. So enough rambling, I'm going to go and get on with my sewing, and I will catch up with you a little bit later on. I'm up in the sewing room, and I thought I would just pop on and let you know where I'm up to with my Shirred dress. So I did manage last night to do all of the ironing and hemming and overlocking. There's a lot of that in this project, and I now have a giant tube. So this is the front and back piece, which will obviously be shirred in, and we'll lose about half of that width in the shirring. And then for each of the tiers I overlocked the edge and then sewed that down with a top stitch. It'll be really hard to see because of the black and white fabric. And then on the bottom of the first and second tier, I've just overlocked the edge here, but this is the 3rd tier, and so I've hemmed that because that will be the bottom of the dress. And then I went ahead and just put in 2 rows of gathering stitches across the top of each tier. Now I do that in a contrast colour because I really like to remove my gathering stitches once I've sewn it on with the proper thread. I really don't like leaving those in, so I do it in a contrast thread so I can really easily see which are the gathering stitches to pull those out afterwards. And then I've just started gathering in that first tier. So I've just pinned that to the outside of the tier so that it will have a little gathered ruffle on the outside of the dress, which I think will look really pretty. So I've just done the front and back and put that first tier on, so I've got quite a lot of gathering and pinning to do yet. I think I will sew on each piece one at a time just so that I'm not wrestling with too many pins and things. So that's the next step. I will sew that down and then gather the second tier and gather the 3rd tier. I'm hoping tomorrow I'll be able to get to that shirring because I'm really looking forward to that, although I'm doing a lot of research at the moment on what settings I need for my machine. I'm looking forward to wearing this one. The weather's been really changeable here this week. We've had quite cold mornings, but we've now got some sunshine, so I'm hoping that it'll be warm enough at the end of the week to wear this if I get it made. So that's me for today. I will pop back on tonight if I get another chance to sew this evening. Otherwise, I shall see you tomorrow. It's Thursday and I'm up in the sewing room, and I thought I would show you what I got up to last night. This is the dress. It's very glamorous looking so far. It's actually twice that size. Huge at the top, but obviously that will be gathered in so that it becomes about, well, it becomes about half the size, so it will fit around my bust. Now what I have done is added all of these tiers. I really love the way they look. I hope you can see that just the soft ruffle here. I really like the way that that worked out. I'm really pleased with the length, so that's good because I spent a long time trying to work out how long to make each tier. I love the way it's going from a shorter tier at the top to a longer tier at the bottom. I think that looks really elegant. I have held it up against myself in front of the mirror and had a bit of a swish. There was a lot of gathering, pinning, sewing, and then removing gathering threads involved, so it did take me a lot longer than I thought. So this project is definitely not one for you if you don't like gathering, but if you do, I think the results are pretty cool. So what I have been doing this afternoon is playing about on my machine, checking the tension and the stitch length for shirring. I think that I worked out one that works for me, so that's perfect. And I've done a bit of a test here on this offcut here. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm only upping the stitch length a little bit to 3. I tried a 3.5. I don't think that gives enough of a gathered look, so I'm going to up it to about 3 for my stitch length. And then the tension is fine, so I'm just going to leave that exactly where it is. I'm pleased with that. So I'm going to start by shirring my straps because I think that's quite a nice warm-up piece. And I'm going to sew 4 lines of shirring on this side just so that I get a nice flutter on the outside of each sleeve. So that's what I'm going to start with now before I head off on the school run later on. So hopefully I will have 2 straps, and then I'll probably spend tonight shirring the bodice. This bit is just a bit tedious. It comes together relatively easily. You just have to sew a whole bunch of straight lines and use a whole heap of bobbins. So on my table over here I've got the sewing bee set up on my phone, I have a nice hot coffee, and then I've got 2 or 3 wound up bobbins with elastic thread in those ready to go. If you want a tutorial on shirring, I'll link a couple below. I used the Stitch Sisters shirring tutorial, which is fantastic. So I can recommend that if you want a tutorial on how to wind your bobbins, how to pop them in your machine, just the whole setup for getting started with shirring. So I'm going to go make a start and watch the sewing bee and get these straps shirred. I'll see you in a bit. Hi, it's Friday night. I'm up in the sewing room after a busy day, and I thought I'd let you know where I got up to with my shirred dress. So last night I got about 9 or 10 rows of the shirring done. It comes to about mid-bust, so there are a few more rows to do yet. We need about 20 or 23 rows of shirring, and I'm at about 10. So I do have to say, these shirred dresses involve a lot of gathering and a lot of shirring, so quite basic processes if you're a beginner sewist, but not the most exciting. So I have a podcast on my phone ready to listen to tonight, and I am just going to see if I can finish off sewing these rows of shirring. And then the dress is basically done. I sewed both of these arm ruffles last night, so that's one there, and that's the other one there, and then they will attach to the bodice like so, and then it will be done. So in terms of the sewing, there's not a whole heap left to do, but it will just take time, so that's fine. I have some time tonight. I'm going to chill out with a podcast. I'll probably pop back on at some point tomorrow to close out my week in sewing, hopefully with a finished shirred sundress. It's meant to be really, really warm tomorrow. It would be quite nice to have this finished and then I could wear it. I'm off for some more shirring, and I shall catch you tomorrow. Hello, well, it's Saturday, and as you can see, I have finished the dress. I'm very excited and I absolutely love it. I can't believe it's taken me quite this long to make a shirred dress, but I really love this one. I do like having my shoulders covered a little bit, so I love these ruffly sleeves. Love, love, love. And I'm really glad, I'm really happy with where the bodice finishes, and I absolutely adore the tiers. I wasn't sure going through the process whether they would be too much, too ruffly, too long. It's always hard to know when you're making your own pattern, but I'm absolutely thrilled with them, and I really like the way that the tiers go from slightly shorter to slightly longer at the bottom. I think it's quite subtle, but if you know, you know, and I really like the look of it. So last night I just finished adding these straps into the bodice once I'd finished the shirring. I have to say, this project is one that you have to have quite a lot of patience for. The gathering takes a lot longer than you think it will, and the shirring takes a lot longer than you think it will, probably mostly because it's just quite monotonous. So I did find myself losing my concentration and just needing to go and do something different for a bit. However, I am so pleased with the finished product that I would definitely make another one of these in the future because they're so lovely and easy to wear, and really it's a very straightforward make, it just takes time. So last night I finished shirring the bodice and then I attached the straps, and all I did was I tried on the bodice without the straps obviously, and then I held the straps up over my shoulder to just work out where I wanted them. And it was roughly, the measurement is roughly about 10 centimeters in from this side seam to the start here, and that's with it all shared up. I didn't straighten it out or anything, I just measured it as it was, about 10 centimeters. So once I had those rough measurements, I pinned the straps in, both of them in 10 centimeters from the side seams at the front and at the back again, 10 centimeters in from the side seams at the back as well, and tried it on very carefully because obviously there were quite a few pins holding them in place. Once I was happy with that fit, I did then just sew them into place, and I just sewed straight across the seam here to hold them in place. I did sew the bottom of this ruffle, let's see if I can show you, the bottom of this ruffle in place as well, and I did straighten out the fabric here as I sewed that straight part of the ruffle in place, because I figured once the shirring did its thing it would ruffle it back up, and I'm really happy with the way those are sitting. I'm so happy with this make. I hope you've enjoyed coming along on the process as well. I appreciate it's been quite broken up really, because this is the nature of the way that I sew. Like I said, it's bits and pieces when I can find the time. But I hope it's made sense as a wee tutorial as well as my week in sewing. Any questions that you have, do just pop a comment in the box below. But I hope that you enjoyed the video. I hope that you have a go at making your own shirred dress, and if you do, please do share it with me over on Instagram. Tag me into your post so I can see what you've made. I am So Amelia over on Instagram as well, so do come and follow me there if you haven't already. If you are new to my channel, thank you so much for watching and following along till the very end. If you would like to, please do like the video, and if you haven't yet, do subscribe and click on the notification bell so you will be made aware of when I publish future videos. It's so lovely to have so many of you following along on my sewing journey, and thank you for coming back week after week and watching my videos. I do so enjoy making them and sharing my sewing journey with you all. So that's it from me. I'm off to enjoy the beautiful sunshine today in the park. My middle child has a birthday party to go to, and thankfully it's outside in the park, so I shall very much enjoy floating around in my new dress and enjoy having a lovely time with him outside in the summer sunshine. So thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have a really lovely week ahead full of lots of happy sewing, and I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye!